Welcome everybody to our commencement exercises for 2012. We're going to start the procession in. I ask you to remain seated when the students come in, and then I will, hold please. Then I will ask you to stand for the faculty. So we'll start the music and then proceed in. So just a quick welcome again to our ceremonies. I'm Sarah Peterson, the Academic Coordinator for the Master's and PhD programs here. So I would like to start off the ceremonies by introducing Dr. Eileen Servideo, who is the President of the International Relations and Diplomacy School.
Hello. I want to welcome all board members, staff, students, professor, friends of AGS, and soon-to-be alumni and their family and friends, our commencement speaker, our provost, and everyone here. Usually every year I never know what to say to you, and this year I had about 100 things I wanted to say to you. There's so many things going on in the world, I didn't know what message to go out. And don't worry, I only speak for about 2 minutes. I have learned certain things. I hope I learned a little bit more than 5 or 6 things, but there's about 5 or 6 quick things I'd like to say to you. And I believe that when you grow old, like I am growing older, not old, that you do learn some things. Now, one of the things I would like to share with you that I've learned is that we learn things and then we realize that things change or we change or the situation changes, and there's nothing wrong with relearning something, throwing out an old idea and finding a new one. It's not weakness, it's not flip-flopping, it can be progression. I'm not talking about if you're easily swayed with whoever you last spoke with. I'm talking about learning a new situation and learning how to treat it differently than you have in the past. So that's one thing, which leads me to say that we have certain preconceived ideas. We know what works for ourselves. We know what works for our government, our economy, more or less. But that doesn't mean that these solutions to problems work in other cultures, other countries, other economies. The problem with many of us is that not that we don't want to help others, we do want to help others. I mean, I'm talking about you people here. I'm not talking about everybody in the world. I'm talking about our graduate students. I know you want to be in NGOs, you want to do things for the world, you want to make it better. We don't know how to help others properly. Let me just give you an example. I was in Arusha about a year ago, and I was speaking at a small conference with a group of African women. Very bright African women having wonderful jobs and just amazing women. And there were 2 or 3 Americans, and after the African women spoke about how to become more liberated, have more control over their lives in Africa, one of the French professor, one of the American women that was in the group, who was very touched by what the African women were saying, got up and said, I want to help you, which was nice. I want to spend some time in Africa. I want to show you how to be liberated. Now, I hung my head in shame, and I saw the African women glance at each other wearily. We cannot help others if we don't know what they need and how they resolve their own problems. We have to know their history, their cultures. Our answers are not their answers. And we have particularly in, a lot of us are American, but in European country in America, we do think we know better. What worked for us should work for them. So I can say to these African women, stand on a bridge, take your bras off, burn them, and throw them in the Chicago River, because that's what I did to liberate myself, okay? That's not going to work for them. We have to understand that their idea of being liberated is different from our idea of being liberated. Their idea of human rights is different from our idea of human rights. Their idea of wearing veils is very different. They have different reasons that we don't understand. And if we want to help them solve their problems, we have to know their problems, and we have to know them. Now, another thing is that we have a tendency of thinking we know things very quickly. I will give you a story. I have 2 boys, 2 men, 2 sons. And my younger boy, when he was about 5 or 6, we were in a shop in Paris, and he speaks English to me, and he was speaking French to the shopkeeper. And she said, oh, in French, oh, you smart little boy, you speak so wonderfully. How many languages do you speak? And he said, 3. I didn't say anything. I know French and English. He might have been bad in math. He said 3. So we got home, And I looked at him and I said, William, what languages do you speak? He said, well, I speak French, I speak English, and I speak Spanish. Oh my God, you speak Spanish? We have some Spanish friends, and he hangs around with their children, and I thought, well, maybe he learns Spanish with them. I said, honey, speak to me in Spanish. And he went, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, and he went up to 10. He said, I speak Spanish. Okay, he was 5 or 6. We spent 2 weeks, holiday, in Mexico. And we come back and we think we understand the Mexican population, all their problems, their religion, the drug war. We know how we're going to eliminate all their problems. We have to. We really have to know things better to help. And we have to be modest. We have a lot more learning to do in life than we do teaching. Always remember that. I think I've said most of what I wanted to say. So throw your preconceived ideas away. If you want to support people, know how you can do them really their style. And forget some sayings. This is just an aside now. There's certain things I really hate. I hate people saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. How often have you heard that? The enemy of our enemy is our friend. No, he's not. If he's a South American dictator who's abusing the population, okay, he might not like communism, but does that make him our friend? No. Get these ridiculous sayings out of your mind. Think for yourself. Use your imagination. Learn about who you're trying to help and do it properly. Remember, hate, fear, and violence only breeds hate, fear, and violence. I've never seen it long-term solve a problem. Remember also that love and compassion for not only those close to us, but people from everywhere we should have compassion for. I was in an AC meeting, yes, the dreaded AC, and Dr. Yates, God knows what we were talking about. We go off in tantrums. And Dr. Yates looked at me and he said, no, Eileen, nice is good. I'll tell you the truth, nice is very good. Love, compassion, kindness, these are things we need in the world. These would prevent us from sending busloads of refugees back to South Sudan. We have compassion. We would never do that, no matter what the reason was. So I find that love, compassion, kindness, very underrated qualities. And I hope that if you have this compassion, if you forget your preconceived ideas, if you keep your mind open, I think you'll make yourselves proud and you'll make us very proud of you. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce, because the introductions, because the two people that are speaking today on the IR side, I'm not even talking about on the business side, have such long CVs, I just had to choose some of them. So I have to read the list here. I'm going to introduce Dr. Steve Michael. He is the provost of Arcadia University, which is our partner school. You'll see that your diplomas will say AGS in Arcadia. He is the vice president for academic affairs, formerly professor of higher education management, vice provost for diversity and academic initiatives, directorship of the Center for International and Intercultural Education, interim associate dean of education at Kent State. He was an American Council of Education fellow under both the presidents President of Carnegie Mellon University and under Vice Chancellor of the City University of London and Bath. Highly published both in America and in international journals in the field of education. He is the recipient of the Sheffield Award. He served as liaison officer for the Educational Management Association of South Africa. And I can go on and on and on, but it makes me feel so dumb compared to him. So I'm stopping there. Here is Dr. Steve.
Good afternoon. Okay, I'm going to try it again. I came all the way from Pennsylvania to say good afternoon to you, and you're going to keep quiet on me. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. That's how we do it back home. Thank you. Thank you. President, Chair of the Board, graduating students, parents, and friends. I can assure you that your friends and parents are very happy today. Partly because they don't have to pay bills next month. All right. So I brought you greetings from Acadia University, Pennsylvania, USA. And I'm delighted to represent Acadia University at this commencement. Let me start with the greetings from the president of Acadia, Carl Oxum III, who would have wanted to be here today. But he was in China with me in the past 9 days. Well, going through China, 8 cities in 8 days, walk all days and travel all night, but I still made it here. So this is what he asked me to read to you in his own words. Dear graduates, my wife and I met many of you during my visits to AGS in December, and I can't wait to meet you again as proud alumni. Your commencement is significant to me because it is the first Acadia AGS commencement under my presidency. Congratulations to you. And I invite you to join me in building a vibrant global alumni network that will benefit us all as it expands Acadia's reputation for excellence. Unquote. So when you see him, tell him I read his letter to you. As some of you may know, commencements are important university events in the United States. Everyone who earns an American degree is reminded at commencement about the journey that has brought them thus far. The sacrifice of families and friends, the support of faculty and staff, and above all, their own personal, indomitable determination and hard work. All that is cherished and crowned at a befitting celebratory event called commencement. We also use this occasion to prepare the celebrant for the future that awaits them. We remind them that the values embodied in the diplomas issued to them are critical for success in life. Therefore, when you hold Acadia University diploma in your hands, be conscious always of the cardinal values of Acadia education, relentless pursuit of excellence, refusing to accept the status quo as finality, confidence and courage that make all the difference even in the most challenging environments, embracing the globe and humanity in all its richness and complexity. Entrepreneurs with social conscience, believing that the most profitable ventures are those that enrich us all, and service that makes the world a better place. Acadia education transcends the understanding of the technicalities of your fields and the nuances of your disciplines. Henceforth, as alums of Acadia AGS, you will be our voice to the world, our presence to that organizational community you find yourself, proudly demonstrating the Acadia promise. Acadia University It's an old institution by American standard, established in 1853, for a group that was at that time disenfranchised from higher education. History has it that 2 centuries ago, little else traveled through the wilderness of westernmost Pennsylvania, except for the Ohio and the Beaver River. At their confluence, the French established a trading post. There, members of the Delaware, the Shawnee, the Iroquois tribes gathered to barter and exchange goods with the European traders. It is in that little town called Beaver, Pennsylvania, that the Beaver College was born. So today, we have come full circle, bringing Acadia University, the then Beaver College, to Paris, to France. I'm sure guided by the invisible spirits of those French prospectors who founded the trading post. What an amazing story. It is that same enduring spirit that led Beaver College to attain collegiate status in 1872, to relocate to Glenside, Pennsylvania in 1929, and to become the pioneer of what is now known today as the study abroad in 1948. Who would know that Acadia started that? Interestingly, the first organized study abroad was to France, to study a war-ravaged country. Amazing. It seems to me that destiny has been working, albeit surreptitiously, to bring Beaver Acadia to France. And today, you are the fulfillment of that fate. Congratulations. I have no doubt that you will do great in life. After all, you are the product of great faculty, great administrators here at EGS, those who I extend my gratitude to for the great job they are doing, turning novice into experts, the timid into self-assured professionals, and the provincial to global leaders. I'm proud of the quality they embody, the vision they pursue, and the excellence they represent. Congratulations to you. And now I'm going to try my French on you. Good luck. Les félicitations à la cookerie la monde. Who can tell me what I just said? Thank you. God bless you.
Okay, next time we'll have subtitles here when you present. Thank you very, very much. I had no idea that we made a complete circle back to Paris. Okay. The next person I want to introduce is His Excellency Ambassador Jeremy Kinsman. He's our commencement speaker for today. He's an experienced Canadian diplomat, heads the project for the Community of Democracies, which recently produced the Diplomatic Handbook on Democracy Development and Support. He's Deputy Permanent Representative to United Nations and Minister for Political Affairs in Washington. He was Ambassador in Moscow, then in Rome, High Commissioner in London, and then to the EU in Brussels. He actually is a lead writer for the Foreign Affairs for Policy Option magazine. He is regularly heard on CBC News, and of course is widely published and lectures throughout the world. He was a diplomat in residence at the Woodrow Wilson School of Princeton, is actually resident international scholar at the Institution of Governmental Studies at the University of California, Berkeley, and distinguished visiting diplomat at Ryerson University. He is on many boards, such as the European Policy Center, and again, I could go on for another 10 pages. I just picked out a few things he's done. Thank you, and Ambassador Jeremy can
Somebody once said about the great jazz saxophonist Stan Getz that he was a great bunch of guys. And whenever I hear that, I wonder who all those guys are that they're talking about. Chers amis, chers jeunes amis, félicitations. Vraiment, vous devez être fiers. I've done a few of these. I have to say that as a living sample, you're one of the best looking gang I've seen. So good for you. You know, these speeches about life and stuff, giving you advice, it humbles me, and I feel I'm on shaky ground. I was for a long time an ambassador. I didn't retire, I quit. And I got this suit out, but I never wear it anymore. I'm a democracy activist. And I'm going to talk to you, if you don't mind, because you're going into the world, and we need you. So I'll talk a little seriously. Not about advice, but about some thoughts to take away. The only actual advice I really feel on solid ground to give you is that having done a master's in Paris myself about 48 years ago, I am sorry that I'm the one to break harsh news to you, but you've just spent the best 2 years of your life. And as I do these in universities, particularly the hard-strapped universities where I am in the United States and Canada right now, I never congratulate the students without congratulating the parents, really, honestly. Putting it up for education is about as good as you can do for your kids. Well, look, you got some credentials in the university business. You've got credentials. You have wonderful credentials. I actually don't have that many credentials, but I've worked out there. I have to tell you that your credentials as foreign policy people, foreign affairs experts, finance experts, they're really, really useful, and they're really, really needed. They're needed at home. My experience is that in business, executives responsible for international operations finally are getting that it is essential to understand the countries where they're operating. You know, having invaded Iraq with absolutely zero knowledge about the people in that country, the United States military has turned on its dime, and I noted with some interest, curiosity the other day, that the professional subcategory of outside hires, most sought after by the U.S. military today, is that of cultural anthropologists. Anyway, whatever you do, whether you go into business or teaching, or you work for NGOs, or maybe you'll be diplomats, you're going to be changing what you're doing every couple of years. We know now that change, which is normal, is something you got to embrace. But you know, I agree with your president. It is very much easier to face change if you do so from the standpoint of having solid values of your own. Every profession I know, and I'm on the board of a public company, struggles with the tension between interests and values, just like diplomacy. My view is, my experience is, if you stay true to your values, the interests are going to follow. Here's the stuff I want to tell you. You know, I run a democracy development project. I'm a democracy activist. I want people who do not have our rights to have them. At our core, and at your core, okay? Coming where you come from, and I see there's one Canadian among you. You're Democrats. We're all Democrats. And we don't even think about it. We take our rights for granted, that they're part of our hard wiring. And yet half of humanity lacks our rights. whatever the difficulties, current difficulties, the impulses behind the Arab Spring ought to confirm to all of us for once and for all that the desire for freedom and political participation is not a cultural peculiarity of Europe and North America. I can tell you democracy is flourishing in Latin America, India, Indonesia, Taiwan. Nowhere is immune. The Chinese leadership maintains that China is different and can pursue a form of democracy with Chinese characteristics. And that's just code for the party holding on to its monopoly of political power. The great late dissident physicist Fang Lixi used to ask his adoring students at the time of Tiananmen if they believed in physics with Chinese characteristics. He wrote that the principles of human rights are like the principles of science. They're universal, but they're always at risk. Do you ever wonder what it must be like without democracy? To be afraid of going to jail for saying the wrong thing, or like in Iran, for wearing the wrong thing or not wearing the right thing? You know, I spent many years in Russia. In Stalin's Soviet Union, the great poet Anna Akhmatova tried to describe it on behalf of the millions of silent people just trying to survive. And in Leningrad in the 30s, in the darkest night of Stalin's terror, she had to visit the prison where her husband and son were locked up because the regime was too afraid to try to get her because she was too well known. And the only way you would know if they were still there or still alive was to bring a package. And if they called your name and accepted the package, then you knew the worst hadn't happened. Women huddled outside the walls in the dark winter cold. And names were called, and then her name, Akhmatova. And faces turned toward the writer whose name they knew. And a voice whispered up at her, "Can you describe this?" "I can," she promised, and she did. But still, we find it very hard to grasp the world of fear. And the fight against fear, it's a human story. It's got martyrs, it's got heroes. You've heard of Anna Politkovskaya, Russian journalist, relentless in exposing atrocities in Chechnya, and crooked, murderous dealings by the mafia, and they killed her. Have you heard of Las Damas de Bianco? They are the wives of journalists and human rights defenders in Cuba who were thrown into jail several years ago just for writing honest things. Those men are out now, in part because these brave women, with their silent walks through Havana after Sunday Mass, embarrassed the regime before the world's eyes. We didn't see humanitarian physician Karen Wu die in Afghanistan, shot in cold blood because she was helping children, but she stays alive in our free days. Aung San Suu Kyi is coming here, I think, next week. When she was finally released from house arrest after 20 years, she was asked how it felt to be free. She said, "My mind was always free." But she reminded us that freedom may need a battle. And such battles have terrible risks for people who are trying just to survive, which is an act of courage just in itself. You know, in Cuba, where I was recently, people are still afraid to criticize Fidel. And when they talk about Fidel, they never mention Fidel. They go like this and they make a beard because they're afraid to say his name. And in Libya, no one said Gaddafi's name. He had a simple method of dealing with vocal opponents. He killed them for 42 years. Yet, in Dara, in Syria, hundreds of students, your contemporaries, marched in peaceful protest for basic human rights while snipers mined the rooftops. And you know what they chanted? They chanted, "Sniper, sniper, what do you see? Here are our necks. Here are our heads." And could we be that brave? Perhaps if we had that little to lose and maybe that much to gain. But you don't have to be that brave. There's so much you can do to support brave people. And what is their struggle on behalf of values you share? And I agree, we cannot export democracy. It has to emerge from each people in question. It has its own trajectory, each in its own way. But the process always has two chapters. In chapter 1, there's the build-up over time of resentment over the grievous costs and humiliations of being not free. And a shared awareness emerges. You know, to know what was going on in Tunisia, Tunisians didn't need to depend on WikiLeaks and the U.S. ambassador's description of the obscene excesses of the dictator's son-in-law's seaside house with the caged tiger and the ice cream desserts flown in daily from Saint-Tropez. Or that the dictator's immediate family controlled 50% of the country's economy. These were open secrets. But when poor fruit vendor Mohamed Bouazizi set himself on fire because of injustice, it became the tipping point, and people rose up. And open secrets became public truths. And when protests become uprisings in chapter 1, when they do, the self-discipline of non-violence is essential. You know, Gandhi is sometimes mistakenly portrayed as a pacifist. He wasn't. But he knew that if protest turns violent, the people in authority can usually out-violent the people. So he turned to satyagraha, in Sanskrit, truth power, or force more powerful. And that's what I ask you to celebrate, that force more powerful. In Tunisia and Egypt, the protests did stay nonviolent, and the army refused orders to shoot peaceful protesters, your contemporaries, as they have in other critical places, in Moscow and in Kiev. But in others, at Tiananmen, Rangoon, and Tehran, security forces followed deadly orders to shoot, to kill. The peaceful uprisings were put down, but I promise you, only for a while. Now, in Syria today, the regime thinks it can do the same. The militias, as you read, it's true, are murdering innocent children. But sooner or later, the regime will fall. Dictators inevitably go down or out. And once they do, chapter 2 begins. And that's the transition to democracy. And it's often more difficult than chapter 1. And you can help. You know, it's not a process. I learned in Russia in the 1990s that democracy is behavioral. It has to be learned. It takes time. It's not an app that you can download. We kind of thought it was then in the 90s. And it's about much more than elections. It's about what happens after elections, especially about managing pluralism, tribes, religions, sects, regions, winners and losers. The people need your help to build that capacity. Not to tell them, I agree, how we do things, because frankly we often don't do them so well ourselves these days, but to support their own learning process and to help them deliver transparent and effective government. The Arab Spring has been over much more than absence of democracy. It's a protest against the system's failed promises. Privileged interests call the shots and get the rewards. It's inherently unfair, especially to the young. If they got education, there were no jobs. And as the Arab Spring spreads, I get told that maybe it's a mistake to support such uprisings, which seem to bring instability to a volatile and critical place, the Middle East. It's true, there are unresolved issues. The people were unprepared, and it is a critical place. But it's especially critical to the people who live there. And you know, 60% of them are under 30. And Arab youth are no longer humiliated by being kept outside your conversation. You know, they're wired to what's going on elsewhere. They know their societies are unjust, and they know how you live here. They expect you to live up to what you say are your values, to be consistent. And if the Middle East is inherently unstable, it's because it is inherently unjust the way it is. We were gamed by dictators who claimed to be our allies in a wider war against terror, which you were speaking of. It led to false choices, such as dictators or Islamists. And the delusion persuaded our security agencies to subcontract dictators to torture rendered suspected terrorists. It was immoral, but it was also dumb, because we invested in losers and contradicted who we are. And we're Democrats, but also pluralists. And the real difference in the Middle East is not between Islamists and non-Islamists. It's between pluralists and non-pluralists. Islamists today in Tunisia and Egypt are showing there can be pluralism in Islamic societies. Younger people, you're much better at pluralism of all kinds than older generations. So help. How? First, please pay attention. Whatever you're doing, don't be in a bubble. Our democracy's in our hands, so participate. And other people's democracies should also be in our heads and hearts. It's not up just to governments to help, but up to us in civil society. This academy is part of civil society, to lead in supporting civil society elsewhere as Democrats. Maybe some of you will become diplomats. I'll share some advice. One thing I've learned about my former profession, it's by instinct too conservative, too afraid of change, over-investing in the status quo, and failing to heed the warning signs from outside diplomatic or corporate bubbles. So let me just suggest to you some guidelines for behavior. I worked for several years at the UN. It's often called a talk shop, and that's not a compliment. Delegates there do talk too much. They lecture, they criticize, they take shots at each other. And I remember a representative of the Pinochet dictatorship that had overturned democracy in Chile, taking the floor of a committee meeting after his government had been vividly criticized in a debate by the representative of East Germany, when there was an East Germany that was part of the Soviet bloc. The Chilean asked for the floor and said, "Madam Speaker, I refuse to accept the criticism from the Soviet Union's delegate. Who is the Soviet Union to pronounce on issues of freedom?" And so on, as you can imagine. The Soviet delegate hurt, sought the floor on a point of privilege. "Madam Chairman, I haven't said a word in this debate," he protested. "Why does a Chilean colleague criticize my country?" "Madam Speaker," Chilean said, "because, look, if the neighbor's dog comes and does his business on your lawn, to whom do you complain? To the dog or to the master?" It was a great line, and everybody laughed, because it had some truth, obviously, as the Soviet delegate was the first to know. The truth has power, but be moderate in speaking what you believe from your standpoint to be the truth about other people's realities. The best thing a diplomat can do is listen, to make talk shops a listening shop, listening to the priorities of others. They may not be yours. There is a remarkable Algerian diplomat, Brahimi, who was tasked a few years ago by a worried Security Council to try to mediate the deadly differences in Iraq among warring parties, sects, tribes, and factions, which threatened to degenerate into complete chaos at the cost of many, many lives. And he succeeded. How? Because he set out to hear from each of the disputants what precisely was their minimum requirement from the others. And in satisfying everybody's minimum requirement, he was able to construct and propose a package of settlement which had a chance of holding together. Everybody had to compromise. He achieved this by listening, not by talking. Yesterday, I was at the offices of one of my conference partners, the International Federation for Human Rights, a very great organization, headquartered in this city since 1927. They have a watchword slogan that's up in their walls, and I like it, and I give it to you. It's "keep your eyes open." It's good advice. It's got a lifetime guarantee, particularly if you're determined to remember who you are. Because with open eyes and ears and open minds, change will be your friend. Of course, some things don't change. I hope that continues to include Paris. I have to say that this is a sacred place for me, because when I was a student here, the Alliance Française de Boulevard Raspail was when French-speaking guys like me came to pick up American girls. And I had a rush of excitement coming here tonight and seeing you, and I thank you for that. It's very moving. You don't understand how moving it is to see young people setting out to succeed in a world that really can stand some improvement. And now your credentials and your possibilities are really huge. I just urge you to take part in what's going on, participate, because you're needed. Okay? So, congratulations. Good luck to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would now like to introduce Dr. Ali Fatimi, the president of the School of Business and Economics, to also give a charge to the graduates.
Michael, Ambassador, honors guest. I have often worked under difficult circumstances and handicaps, but not like tonight. I have 3 handicaps standing up here. First of all, to follow the ambassador's speech. I think it was one of the, I've heard many commencement speeches, maybe 40, 45, but this was really a moving one. And especially I appreciate the references to Iran, which is my country. The second handicap is that I'm a professor, and I'm programmed to speak for 50 minutes, and they only give me 5. And the last one, which is worse than all, is I'm an economist, which means I can't talk without a board and a joke. So, considering those things, first of all, maybe I should apologize for being an economist these days. But what is worse, I teach finance. And I have my colleague, Professor Avakamian from Baruch, who is chairman of the finance department, and he has asked me to apologize on his behalf for finance. But then, it's so bad that half of our graduating students didn't dare to show up to receive degrees in finance. So 2 brave ones did come. And I'd like to talk to those 2 and the rest of you. All joking aside, don't let them talk you down. Finance is a great profession. Finance is not the enemy. Ignorance is the enemy. Without finance, you would not have world trade. And if you didn't have world trade, you wouldn't be able to lift more than 1 billion people out of poverty over the past quarter century. Now, if just a few people do something wrong, it's very much like denouncing medicine because there are some charlatans and quacks who practice false medicine. We don't say medicine is a bad thing. So to denounce finance, I think, is foolish. Finance is one of the most important parts of modern life. It is a difficult subject. I congratulate our students who are here and the ones who didn't dare to come. And I hope that you can be of great service to humanity, not only to your country. Lady from the United States, I'm from Poland, one from Lebanon, and a young French gentleman. Your service is going to be to humanity, it's going to be to everyone, and the profession that you have chosen is something to be proud of, and not to have to apologize for. Thank you.
Unfortunately, Dr. Michelle Guillaume Hoffnon cannot make it to the commencement ceremony, so she will be at the dinner for those of you who are coming to the Senate for the dinner. So, welcome from her. So now we will begin the conferring of the degrees, and I invite Dr. Eileen Servideo to begin the conferring of the Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy. Lisa Marie Albright, USA, in absentia. Jennifer Alexander, Malaysia, in absentia. Wrong sheet, sorry. Kristen Barrett, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, magna cum laude. Amber Cristino, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, concentration in African Studies, magna cum laude, Master in Strategic Negotiations and Diplomacy, University of Paris 11. Sean Michael Durkin, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, magna cum laude, a candidate for Master of Law, LLM, at University of Cergy-Pontoise. Stephen Goss, USA, in absentia. Jennifer Markovic, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, cum laude. Tiara McMahon, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, magna cum laude. Carolyn Meyer, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, concentration in African Studies, summa cum laude. Rachel Lee Miner, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, concentration in African Studies, magna cum laude, Master in Strategic Negotiations and Diplomacy, University of Paris 11. Etienne Rosas, USA, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, magna cum laude, Master in Strategic Negotiations and Diplomacy, University of Paris 11. David Cullen Stewart, Canada, in absentia. Elena Zettelmeyer, Germany, Master of Arts in International Relations and Diplomacy, magna cum laude, Master in Strategic Negotiations and Diplomacy at University of Paris 11. Our next group of candidates are candidates for our January commencement, and unfortunately, since we don't have a very nice ceremony as we do today, we honor them here. Kelly Archambault, USA, in absentia. Ruth Ifeoluwa Atoyebi, Nigeria. Concentration in African Studies and cum laude. Fabian Bichler, Germany. Master in Strategic Negotiations and Diplomacy, University of Paris 11. Tram Bui, USA, cum laude. David Fellman, USA, in absentia. Brian Bruce Godfrey, USA, Master of Arts, International Peace and Conflict Resolution with Arcadia University. Beverly Lamoha, USA, concentration in African Studies. Lorena Quintana, USA, Master of Arts in, Master in Strategic Negotiations and Diplomacy, University of Paris 11. I now invite Dr. Ali Fatimi to confer the degree of Executive Master of Science in Finance on our next two candidates. We'll start with Gwendolyn Bartlett, USA, Executive Master of Science in Finance. Kinga Robel, Poland, Executive Master of Science in Finance. The other two candidates are Naida Massoud, Lebanon, Master of Science in Finance, and Guillaume Verdun, France, Executive Master of Science in Finance. So before I introduce the next speaker, I just want to give another round of applause to all of our graduates. Good job, everyone. So now I would like to introduce a member of the now official class of 2012, Amber Cristino, who will do the presentation of the class gift.
Hi everyone. It's really an honor to be here tonight and to be surrounded by so many people that I respect and admire. I don't think I'm alone in saying that the past 2 years have passed by more quickly than I could have ever imagined. I'm also sure that many of my colleagues have shared in my angst when deciding to make this leap in the first place in moving to a foreign country. However, these past 2 years at AGS have given me some of the most memorable experiences of my life. The friendships that I have developed here at AGS will be lifelong, and we have truly created our own family from which we all draw support. The education we received here was not only academic, but was also culturally enriching, pulling from the varied backgrounds of all of our students. As a member of the Graduate Student Association, I requested all graduating students to complete a short survey about their opinions on their time here at AGS. I believe their collective responses will give all of you a good idea of what AGS really means to us. When asked to describe their experience at AGS in one word, students described it as unique, enlightening, liberating, life-changing, and fun-trustful, which is a combination of fun and stressful. I asked students to describe themselves 2 years ago, using only one word. Some of the popular responses included nervous, excited, impressionable, and awesome. When asked to describe themselves 2 years later after completing their studies at AGS, responses included confident, old, ready, and more awesome. The culmination and ultimate goal of our master's program was the completion of our thesis. As I think my fellow graduates will agree, the thesis process at AGS could be described as rigorous, to say the least. Our studies at AGS afforded us the opportunity to pursue our own research interests in a way that no other university could have allowed us. Of course, none of us would be here today if it weren't for our professors. They are not only our educators, but they are advisors, mentors, and most importantly, our friends. In fact, when asked to describe their favorite professor in one word, most students simply wrote, inspiring. Our professors have given us the tools necessary to examine the world through a new lens, offering us invaluable insights that will help steer us to our future successes. And as we all know, no university could function without the diligent support of the administration staff. In the short years that we have been at AGS, members of the administration have done everything from helping us to find apartments to scheduling cultural events. They have truly provided us with unparalleled support for which we are eternally grateful. AGS students describe the administration as supportive, cool, and invaluable, with a special shout out to Muriel with helping Rachel in dealing with the 93. Their support was integral to our success at AGS. Paris is known as the City of Light, and we have all been enlightened by our education here at AGS. Not only have we studied the theoretical and fundamental building blocks of international relations, we have also been given the unique opportunity to experience this firsthand through our daily interaction with Parisian culture. To quote Ernest Hemingway, "If you are lucky enough to have lived in Paris as a young man, then wherever you go for the rest of your life, it stays with you, for Paris is a movable feast." Using only one word to describe Paris, students replied, special, breathtaking, awe-inspiring, stunning, and magical. But beyond the academics, theses, and other aspects of graduate life, the core of our experience at AGS lies in our interactions with one another, sharing in the cultural differences that we each bring to our community. When asked to describe the best part of their AGS experience, all students gave different versions of the same response, sharing it with so many awesome people. Whether exploring the streets of Amsterdam together during our class trip, or exchanging ideas on Middle East peace during our wine and cheese evenings, the thing that is most valuable to us was the education we learned from each other in our daily interactions. So, how can we summarize our experience here at AGS? Obviously, each one of us has grown in different ways throughout our experiences here. But I think this statement is a good summary shared by all of us. One student summed up his experience at AGS by saying, "This is probably the most unique and special experience that I've ever been through. It's been quite a journey, a process of discovery through and through. I think what I'll remember the most is how, thanks to all those around me, Paris became my second home." When asked what they will miss most about AGS, the answers were varied. Some named their favorite professor. Others mentioned the AGS tradition of wine and cheese. But one answer seemed to show up again and again, and that was hanging out in the library while pretending to do work, but actually just socializing with all of the other students. The library became the social focal point for all of our community here at AGS. So it is fitting that as our class gift, we wanted to contribute to the comfort of future AGSers by donating a couch to the new break room. A special thank you to Rachel Miner for organizing and collecting all of the funds. We hope that the future AGSers will continue to gain valuable insights from one another as they also pursue their graduate degrees. On behalf of the class of 2012, we would like to present this gift to AGS. Thank you all so much for joining us on this momentous day. This journey would not have been the same without your support. I hope you all will be able to join us tomorrow evening as we celebrate our graduation with family and friends. Thank you.
also. Usually bring the gift and hand it to
They were going to. It was going to be a surprise.
you. Thank you. It was really very touching. Thank you.
I imagine our faculty will be able to use the couch too in the break. Maybe administration, perhaps.
Well, at least it wasn't a bet, I heard.
So that concludes the formal part of the ceremony. I want to give a few little details before the procession goes out. You are all, for those of you who already responded, you're invited to the Senate for our graduation dinner, which the address is on the back of your program. If you need directions, you can ask any of us, or there'll be some people out in the little area right here to help you take a bus or walk. It's not too far, it's the 2 blocks. For the graduating students and faculty, you have to proceed out, but then we would like you to come back and take a photo on the stage. So officially, please leave. Come on back. And then also our photographer will also hopefully if it's not raining yet, will invite you to take a photograph outside in the courtyard of the Allianz. And at 7:30, which is when the cocktails start, please ensure to be at the courtyard in the Senate for other photographs. That's the end of the official photographs at that point, and you can obviously then go to the cocktail. So the cocktail starts at 7:30, and the dinner starts at 8:30. And with that, I would like to ask us all to give another round of applause and congratulations to the class of 2006. And we will now start the processional out. If everybody could please stand for our graduates and faculty. Faculty first, please.